In breaking news over the weekend, Tesla will be investing $500 million to install a new DOJO supercomputer in Buffalo, New York. Governor Kathy Hochul made the announcement and Elon Musk confirmed this. While this new DOJO supercomputer somewhat puts to rest what many thought after the earnings call that DOJO was a failure, Elon did clarify $500 million is only equivalent to 10,000 H100 systems from NVIDIA. Tesla will need to spend more on that. So as a bonus, Elon will also confirm that they'll be buying AMD as well. So today, let's review how much Tesla is earmarking in R&D, and more importantly, how much they might need to spend building out data centers to compete with the other big boys in AI. We've got Jeff Lutz with us. Jeff is an ex-supply chain executive, high level, works with a lot of the Fortune 50s and 100s. Thank you so much, Jeff, for joining us.
Yeah, great to be with you, Herbert. It's an important topic.
Yeah, this is a big one that they announced. We're very happy that they did, especially after the earnings call where people were questioning whether or not DOJO was a failure or not. So, I think it's coming somewhere in the middle, maybe, right? We'll get your opinion on it. So this is sort of what happened. The news broke out on Friday. Tesla's going to invest $500 million to install a DOJO supercomputer in Buffalo. And Kathy Hochul, the state governor, was the one that made that announcement, is going to process millions of terabytes of data from its electric vehicles to improve the safety and engineering of full self-driving. I'm going to go ahead and play this clip of the governor talking about it.
It's not just with this supercomputer. I'm also proud to announce that Tesla is investing $500 million to build their next supercomputer right here in Buffalo. How about that? 2 supercomputers for one community. And this is going to continue, this cycle of possibility. I mean, people think about Silicon Valley. A few businesses went there in the 60s. They exploded in the 80s. It took 2 decades, but all of a sudden they became known as the place that people wanted to go. The young, brilliant minds all wanted to go to Silicon Valley and be the next innovator, come up with the next great thing, the great technologies. That place, my friends, is now New York State.
So we're going to explain a little bit later why they said that it was New York State. And then before I get you to comment on it, I want to just show people what this might look like. So this is Tesla Economics. He just shared this video of, I don't think, this is certainly not the DOJO, the supercomputer, but just wanted to show you a little bit of what it could look like. I think this came directly from Tesla, and they're showing you what pieces of the system looks like. It's pretty massive, and just one bit of it. Okay, Jeff, what do you think about all that?
This goes back to Tesla wanting to engineer and own the whole system from end to end, from the network infrastructure all the way down to the inference computer in the car, and then the software running on top of all of that, and owning that end to end. There's no other OEM in that position. There's no other chip manufacturer in that position that owns that whole system end to end, including the design of the vehicle and all the timing and everything involved with the controls out. So, Tesla believes they can get better performance, better cost, and scalability. And if you're looking at what's happening right now with compute silicon for AI, you're seeing it's constrained. NVIDIA is running at a 52-week lead time. The only reason silicon providers flip their lead times up to, it doesn't take 52 weeks to make this part. The only reason they're doing that is they're in complete control in terms of their supply, and they've got basically they have an over demand situation, and they're not catching up. Both it's on the high bandwidth memory, it's also on the assembly side of putting all this together and shipping out one H100. There's some assembly involved in that, obviously. And so they're in complete control. So this is a similar situation to what Tesla encountered very early on with batteries. Like, hey, this is strategic. We should probably get into it. We're going to have a bunch of partners. We're going to work together on it. But we need to have our own foot in this, and we think we can get better performance. We can get better costs. We can get leverage over our partners. And if we get into a situation where there's insufficient supply and we're on some list, in this point, you're on some list with Meta, Google, and every other company in the world, you don't want to be on some list where you're kind of waiting for a handout. You want to be in control. So this is why, Tesla is doing DOJO. Elon has called, it's the massive undertaking. Elon has called many things, including Tesla and SpaceX themselves, as less than 10% chance of success. He does that pretty much on all of his home runs he swings for. But he's got a really good batting average. And some of these things are going to be unpredictable. Some of these, especially when you're doing something brand new, it's not going to follow a defined schedule and be like perfectly hit every milestone. So I think they are having some challenges with DOJO. But I do think that they're committed. If you look at what's going on with the resource hiring that Alexandra posts about, you look at what's going on with their infrastructure investment and what you just saw here being announced by the governor, they're continuing, to press forward, and they should, and they will. But I just want to say, this is very synonymous with what Tesla had to do with batteries, what Tesla has to do with lithium refining, which they're bringing that up as well. These are all bottleneck things where some other partner controls the source of supply and they control the cost structure. And if you're Tesla and your goal is to get, mass sustainability of transport, and you don't want anything getting in your way, they jump in the middle of those things all the time and try to solve them themselves. And again, if they can control that stack end to end, they also probably will have the best product as well. So those are, I think, a lot of the reasons behind this.
Yeah, no, thank you for explaining that exactly. We want them to have as many, what is it, in the fire, right? What is it?
Yeah, irons in the fire, yeah.
Irons in the fire, thank you. And, this is a race. They need to build as many data centers. So it's great that they did this. I mean, the confusion came, and like you're saying, it's not necessarily confusion. It's just more clarification that Elon at the earnings call did say Elon Musk just said DOJO is a long shot and has a low probability of success. And then he also said a year ago, I'd look at DOJO as a long shot bet, but if it's a long shot bet that pays off, it will pay off in a very, very big way. It's a bet worth making, but not one you can take to the bank sort of thing. So he's been saying the same thing every year, but for some reason this year, people were a little concerned, low probability of success. So it's still there. It's working. He did clarify that DOJO is happening. It's helping now. I just think that he's referring to this idea of DOJO as a service, becoming as better as good as NVIDIA, but they did confirm that they are going to be buying more. So he then said this: the governor is correct that this is a DOJO supercomputer, but $500 million, while obviously a large sum of money, it's only equivalent to 10,000 H100 systems from NVIDIA. Tesla will spend more than that on NVIDIA hardware this year. The table stakes for being competitive in AI are at least several billion dollars per year at this point. And then he also, What's Up Frank, says, any plans to buy any chips from AMD? Yes. So, any commentary on all that?
Yeah, I think being dual sourced is important. It's going to help them with supply leverage. It's going to help them with cost even. And again, if NVIDIA has this at 52 weeks, you've got to be making decisions, a year out. So Tesla's got all these different variables they're dealing with. They're dealing with their own D1, their own D2 chip. They're dealing with the H100, H200, and now the AMD solution that's coming out in Q2 in limited supply. So you've got all these different variables. So what they're ended up doing is they're ended up, building some redundancy in this whole system by having multiple partners. And we talked a bit about just the success of and the risk involved with doing something like a DOJO. I think we commented on it sufficiently. But the only thing I'll say is he says this again. I think it's important to reiterate. He says this pretty much about every home run that going after really to. I think it's important because sometimes he gets accused of just pumping, endlessly, and then sometimes he gets accused of just being completely negative. But here it's pretty balanced. But I would say obviously the takeaway from the call was like, wow, DOJO is not happening. But no, it's more aligned with what he said on other things that actually have come to fruition. I'm sure he would have said, rockets landing in tandem, coming back from space, what's the probability of that happening? I'm sure he would have said that would be very low too. As he said, the overall, probability of SpaceX being successful is same with Tesla. So yeah, I think it's important to just put these statements in context. Yes, there's risk going forward, but it looks like they've got appropriate redundancy, and it looks like they're investing. And we'll get into their CapEx spend, maybe in their R&D spend in a bit, but they're investing in this. If you're following the company, Tesla is going for it. When it comes to network infrastructure, they are putting their foot to the pedal. There's no question about it.
Yeah, well, let's talk about it because I think that they need to put more. But you tell me if you think that that's true. So back to this data center that's in Buffalo. One of the reasons why they might have chosen it is because it's near Niagara Falls for the hydropower. So this is Hallmark's catalog saying Giga Buffalo is right next to Niagara Falls. It could be powered entirely by hydropower. And the reason I post this up is that Elon actually liked this tweet. There's some truth to this. And one of the things Elon's been saying is that you will be able to see data centers from the sky because they're going to be so massive. They're going to be lit up. They're going to require so much electricity. And he said that's one way that you can control AI, by the way. If you need to, you can just shut these things down because you need that big amount of data centers. But who's going to power that? He said that eventually this will be the rate limiting step is who has the energy. And of course, Tesla has plans for that. And then, so let's get to the R&D. Sawyer nicely kind of summarized the R&D spend that Tesla's been spending. In 2023, Apple spent $29 billion in R&D, a sum greater than the total amount Tesla spent on R&D in the company's history. Really shows you how much innovation Tesla extracts from R&D dollars spent. And that's absolutely true. All these other companies spend money on R&D. This is Tesla, pretty modest. From $1 billion a year, jumped up to $2 billion, $3 billion, $4 billion, still not enough in my mind. Elon said, yeah, there are gigantic differences in effectiveness of R&D spending between companies. And then in the 10K that dropped this morning, it says, we currently expect our capital expenditures to exceed $10 billion in 2024, and then be between 8 to 10 billion each of the following 2 fiscal years. I'm not going to read this all out, but it's available for people to zoom in if they want to see this. But so, Jeff, this is my concern, is that 8 to 10 billion is not enough. Yes, R&Ds, like other companies have spent 50 plus billion in R&D and they don't show as much innovation as Tesla, but this is different. This is a data center. This is chips. It's no longer a coding constraint. You're now compute constrained. You need to build this as fast as possible. Why do you think that they're, in my mind, maybe I'm wrong, 10 billion seems a little bit still low?
Well, I think it comes down to efficiency. We talk about R&D spending, talk about R&D efficiency, and what dollars are invested for what amount of sales that you're getting. And I think that's the important ratio to look at. And actually, Tesla, and if you look at, everybody gets kind of like, starry-eyed when they look at the Apple spend. And the truth is, all the other Mag 7 are less efficient versus Tesla. But if you look at the revenue that they're pulling in, it's pretty significant on the Apple R&D spend. So they're just a little bit less efficient than Tesla. There's some that are much, much worse in terms of efficiency. So it's really important to look at efficiency when it comes to R&D. Same thing on the infrastructure investment side. I mean, what's the efficiency of the code and that's running through it? What's the efficiency of these network operations going back and forth to the inference chip? I don't know the answers to those questions. So maybe Tesla is entirely more efficient. We looked at some of the analyst notes on this from Morgan Stanley, for example. It looks like the cost structure that they were able to achieve with DOJO and their design of DOJO was much more efficient than some of the competitive solutions. So I can't look at a raw number and say that's too little, that's not enough, because the others may be massively overspending or massively inefficient with their usage. I don't know the answer to that question. They could be hoarding too. They could be, it's not, by the way, this is not double ordering. This is like they're buying this stuff and they have to take possession of it, because I'm sure NVIDIA's got take or pay contracts across the board when you have something on global allocation, or pretty much with everybody. So to answer your question, Herbert, I think on the R&D side, they're steadily growing. You want to maintain the culture as you're growing your R&D. You don't just want to go double in a year, because when you double in a year and you look at all those new R&D efforts, they may not have that culture that's at the core of what Elon wants. So I think that incremental growth and some big outsized wins would be great. And then same thing on the network infrastructure side. It's hard for me to know, I can look at it compared to a Meta, or I can look at it compared to another company, but I mean, Tesla may be, significantly more efficient. So until I understand like the number of operations that are going through, and I can't tell you that they're spending too little or too much on the network infrastructure side. On the R&D side, it's pretty clear when you look at it as a percent of sales that they're kind of a model of efficiency. In my experience too, I do not want to name any specific companies at all, but I have worked with a good portion, of several companies that have a market cap over $1 trillion, let's say, and you will see significant variation in the efficiency of R&D spend, the efficiency of spend in CapEx as well. R&D is in operating margin, CapEx, the depreciation side of it is. So anyway, I want to just come back to this and say, from a CapEx side, I like what they're doing. I can't say the 8 to 10 should be 15 because I don't know if they're going to be able to use all that. I don't know if they have usage for all that. I'm assuming Tesla's very methodical in how they're planning this out and how they're looking at it. And you also have to look at what can they actually buy in a 12-month time and A, make use of it, or B, will it actually be available? Like I referenced to the 52-week lead time for NVIDIA's solution. So a lot of factors to consider before we say like, oh, this is too much or too little, in my opinion.
Yeah, actually, now that you've said what you just said, it's clarifying in my own mind, actually, which is great, right? So first of all, the argument that many have made is that when you see Microsoft spending $50 billion, it's not just for their own use. Many of that is they have data centers already, and they're servicing large corporations and many companies already as a data center. Okay, so that's, that you got to take a look at that number, bring it down a little bit. And then the thing about Tesla is not only are they're probably one of the only ones. Well, everybody's going to get in the game, but basically they're making their own chip, like you said, DOJO. So they have, you said at the very beginning, right? They're making sure that they have, fail-safe situations. So even if they're saying DOJO's a little slow or it's not growing as fast or whatever we're concerned about, it's actually just amazing that they are doing it in the first place. And then I think there was a comment by Elon saying there are companies that are all they do is chips. And here we are doing it on top of everything else we're doing. So the fact that they did it and they had the foresight to do it many years ago, it's like, give them a break. They're slowing down. They're maybe not going as fast as you want, but Jesus, I mean, it's gone great. So this announcement of the $500 million data center is great news. Like, it means that they're moving forward. They're actually going to start working on it and they're going to continue building it. And then the third thing is they are buying everything. So they're buying as much NVIDIA, they're buying as much AMD, they'll probably buy whatever else is out there, and then they're building their own. So, this kind of puts everything in perspective. And like you said, maybe they're good for this year. And maybe next year they'll take a look where they're at. And Elon has said, right, by next year, there's going to be many other players that's going to have a lot more chips as well. So maybe some of them are buying too early. Yeah, could be the case.
Yeah, there's a number of variables, but I think number one, they want the element of control and performance of that system end to end. The chip in the car, the software running all the way to the network infrastructure. They want redundancy in supply. They want redundancy in cost negotiation. They want the ability to have 2 or 3 different solutions. So Tesla, AMD, NVIDIA. They're actually very sound and very methodical in their approach, in my opinion. And finally, everything's born on an efficiency track for them versus just overspending and then trying to figure out, do we have a use for this or not? So they're very efficient in their code structure. They're very efficient in how they approach capital. And this just seems to be, to me, threading through this whole conversation. Finally, just the data centers being put all over the country. You definitely want geographical redundancy in data centers as well, for, both from a power perspective and, natural disaster and so forth, and proximity to kind of the IOs of that data center. So anyway, number of factors.
Yeah. Do you know much about, like, is it optimized? Like what Tesla's trying to do is optimize it for video, optimize it for AI, not just buy chips and then, throw it in the center. Do you know much about that nuance?
I mean, are they trying to optimize for performance? Yeah. I mean, absolutely. but I mean, there's not much. I mean, I don't have anything else additional I would say to comment on it.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're not just from their perspective. They're really focused on latency. They're really focused on compute efficiency. They're really focused on. They don't want to overspend, and they also don't want all this overhead that they need to power. So there's a number of factors, I think, in terms of their approach. I think they're going to have they're going to have issues. They're going to have, missteps along the way, but, I think they're going to figure this out. And I think this organizational change, the gentleman and the team that led the design of the inference computer in the cars now has the DOJO side of it. I think there's some synergies in that as well. So we'll see. But yeah, I think Tesla wants to kind of steadily increase the strength of this team. Remember, we talked about compute, he talked about resources, and he talked about training data, are really the three foundations they need to drive for AI.
Gotcha. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Jeff. Follow him on X at the Jeff Lutz. Thanks, everybody. I've created a website that is the most comprehensive resource for the Tesla investor. Please check it out. Simply go to my website at herbertong.com.